Welcome again, Mr. Hussein, to our English program, How to Teach Non-Native Speakers to be a good speaker, listener, reader, and writer. But today we are going to talk about the challenges non-native speakers face when they start writing their first words or their first sentences in English. So today, welcome again, Mr. Shen. If you want to introduce yourself once more for our members to remember you. Okay, introduce yourself.
Hi again, my name is Shane Maher. I'm from Ireland. I'm a teacher of English and French, and now I'm teaching in the MENA region, teaching English as a second language.
Okay, Mr. Shane, as non-native speakers, our non-native speakers face challenges in writing skill. So what do you think the first challenge they have when they start writing their first line in English?
Well, I think you probably all agree that the biggest challenge that people from the Arabic background face, or maybe from the Greek or the Russian background face, is that they don't use the same alphabet, and added to that is the complication that the word order is written in different ways in English and Arabic. So I have real great appreciation for Arabic students who learn to write in English.
So what is the solution, or what are the suggested solutions to improve this problem?
Obviously, practice makes perfect. We're tired of saying it, don't beat yourself up. We said before, to err is human. Practice makes perfect, and start with the small basics of any language, of any sentence construction.
Do you think there are any other challenges or any other issues we have to discuss about writing skill in English?
Yeah, I think, as I said, the basics are very important. All sentences have some basic components. We spoke before about making meaning, making yourself understood. You need only a few words at the start. Most of us think of sentences as something that happens in the sentence. So having a good verb there is very important. Then think about branching out from that. So who does the verb? Who does the action?
So students or beginners have to learn the main structure of a sentence, which is subject and verb. Who does what? For example, can you give us some examples to make the idea clear?
Okay, again, I'm thinking of a small child. Probably the best way is to think like nursery rhymes. So a very famous nursery rhyme in English is Humpty Dumpty. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
So Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. So who sat? Humpty Dumpty. So he's the person doing the action, the subject. And what did Humpty Dumpty do? He sat. After that, you get more detail. Where did he sit? On the wall. So you have the basics, you have your subject and your verb, and then you add more detail. The more detail could be the object of the sentence. Humpty Dumpty did the action to what? For example, if Humpty Dumpty had kicked a football, the object of the sentence would be the football. And as you can hear, you can add more detail. Was it a big football or a small football? Did Humpty Dumpty kick it very hard, very gently? And all of these things add more detail. But you always start with the basics. Think of your subject, think of your verb, and then add. You can also consider, when did he kick it? So that's where you start to talk about the tense. Did he kick it today? Yesterday? Will he kick it tomorrow? And this is where you start to expand on your sentence.
Yeah, most beginners in learning English as a foreign language are concerned with spelling when they start writing their sentences. Do you think spelling is a great concern for beginners, or they have to don't pay a lot of concern, or they don't have to concern about spelling, especially they are just beginners. They have to write the words 90% correct, and don't worry about vowels, don't worry about some missing letters, or writing the words in a wrong way.
Yes, I think what we're hearing is the voice of the father and the teacher. We're so concerned with getting things right. Of course, as I said earlier on when we were speaking about reading, learning the phonemes and the digraphs, the sounds, will get you a long way. Unfortunately, English can be quite complicated with spelling, but I would always encourage, make mistakes, make mistakes. For example, the English word to. There are three different, there is one sound but three different spellings. So how do we know which one is the right one? Just with reading in context, writing in context. Ask yourself, am I talking about a number, a direction, or some other word like also? And that will only come with time. So to complement good writing, make mistakes, and to complement good writing, read a lot. And then you will see these other words being used in different situations. And you'll start to remember that if there's only one O, it's a direction, T-O. If there's two O's, two, it means, there's another. So you can think of little ways of remembering. So if there's two O's, it means also. He went to the shop and to the pharmacy also. He went there to, T-O-O. And obviously then you can start to see that there's one more, T-W-O, which is a number. So by practicing your reading, you're going to pick up more and more words, more vocabulary. But please, make mistakes and then get somebody else to check it. It doesn't have to be your teacher, maybe it can be a peer, maybe a friend, maybe a parent. And maybe by working out what's wrong with it yourself, you'll actually get to know it better. But reading and making mistakes, trying, is very important. Poor spelling at the end will come to us all.
Yeah, so here we have reached two very important solutions. Number one, you have to focus on the structure, subject and verb. If you want to start to write a good piece of writing, focus on subject, verb, who does what. Then you have to focus on phonemes. If you want to write good spelling, you have to focus on phonemes. What do you listen? Listen to the word, practice the word, and listen carefully to write carefully. But concerning the style, do you think beginners can reach a good style of writing after a short time?
I think so. I spoke earlier on when we were talking about reading about the voice. Think about what you're trying to write. For example, if I'm trying to teach you how to make a recipe, I don't need a lot of personality in there. It can be very functional. I can have very little words, I can have it in a certain order, I can use numbers. We all understand that this is going to, help us cook the cake or bake something. If you're writing a story, then you want to have the voice of the character coming out. So I always say to my students, have somebody in mind. It's very difficult to write a story if you can't really picture the character of the story. Give him a name in your head. What does he sound like? And if he sounds like that, how are you going to write that? If he's a very old man, maybe he is breathless all the time. So how can you write that? You need to have pauses. If he's a young, excited man, he's going to speak much faster. Maybe he will use short sentences because he's excited. Think of the character in your head and write that way. And this is why I think poetry and drama is very important for us, because it really does, in a short amount of space, get emotion into it.
So beginners have to think and practice, because as we say, practice makes perfect. This is the right way to write a good piece of writing. Do you have any other advice, your last piece of advice to the beginners who want to start writing their good piece of writing? Your last advice to them?
Okay, there's two parts. First of all, feel free to write. Don't worry about mistakes, or even if you run out of ideas, that's okay. Mm-hmm. As you get better, then you start to plan, you start to organize. So just as you organize a sentence, you must organize your entire thoughts. To use the example of the recipe, if I tell you how to mix all the stuff together, but I don't tell you what the ingredients are, you'll be confused, because you'll be looking to mix something, but you won't know what it is. So think of the order. Just like a story must have a start, a middle, and an end, a sentence must have a start, a middle, and an end.
Express their ideas on the papers. Write as much as you can. Later you can organize your writing, put full stop, put comma.
Yes.
That's okay, this is another stage. But first, express your ideas on the paper first. Write as much as you can. then you can organize your writing and reach your own style. But you have to practice, and write. That's okay. Thank you very much,
You're
Mr.
more than
Shane.
welcome.
See
Thank
you
you,
in the
Mr.
next session.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.